I'm wedding and portrait photographer Vanessa Joy, and I'm going to tell you what I pack for engagement sessions. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Engagement sessions and portrait sessions, this is what I use on all of them. Now, to start this off, I do have to make you understand that I am a wedding and portrait photographer in the New York, New Jersey area, which means a lot of my sessions are me and my assistant traipsing around New York. I have to put this not just on my back, but have it easily carryable and switchable right on my hip. So first thing I think you need is a good bag. I have had this bag. Oh, this is my Kelly Moore bag. I have had this for, I have no idea how long. It's definitely lasted, I will say that. They don't even make this style anymore, but of course I have a link to you in the description below on a similar style. It's a pretty easy shoulder bag, which is nice for when I'm carrying it. It's on my hip. I have sometimes an assistant, but not all the time. So again, it's important that I can just keep this flap opened, have it on my hip, and be able to grab whatever it is that I need. So on the inside of this bag, I just have this insert. This insert is just 3 pockets, and that's really all I need. By the way, if you want to learn or get some inspiration on posing, make sure you download my posing inspiration guide. You give me your email address, I send you some more free stuff, and we'll call it even. Sounds good? Back into the gear. First things first, I am shooting right now with the Canon EOS R5 full frame mirrorless camera. However, what I'm going to show you is also included in my setup still worked when I was shooting with the R. If you're shooting DSLR, I'll give you my setup for that as well, but for now, this is what I am using. So I do bring my R5. This is #1. I love shooting with this. This is my choice of camera for weddings, portraits, and engagement. As long as it's not in the studio, I actually still use my 1DX3 for studio work, believe it or not. It's an optical viewfinder thing. Anyway, #1, R5. I'm not gonna put that actually in yet. We're gonna leave that right here because I specifically attach a lens to this to start off, and there's a reason for that. So the first lens that I'm gonna have is the Canon 135mm f2 lens. Yes, this is an EF lens. So of course, what has to come with this is the EF2R mount. Now I have the one, I believe it's $199, that has the control ring. I honestly don't use it, but it has a control ring. I thought I was gonna use it. I really just don't use it that much. And this is #1. Now I put this lens on the R5 to begin with because this is always, almost always, the lens that I start with. And the reason for this being the lens that I start with is when I'm photographing an engagement session, I'm photographing a couple or even a portrait session, a lot of times it's the first time they've ever been photographed. And this baby's a little intimidating, yeah? It can be, at least if you're not used to having it in your face. So I always start off with a nice long lens so I am further away from the person that I'm photographing so that they're not as intimidated. I'm easing them into the session. I'm very deliberate about that. Anyway, so not only is that the first lens that I pretty much always use, but it's the one that I pack in the bag with the camera, and it's also easier because it goes face down right in there in the middle. Now, before I get too far, I don't want to forget. There we go. Key to life, good strap. So this is my strap. Everyone asks about the strap. It's from Kawa Pro Gear. I've heard they don't even answer their emails anymore, so I don't think you can buy it. I'd love to actually make a strap like this to offer to you guys, but apparently that is a process. Anyway, this goes right into the tripod mount. I keep that on here. There we go. It's a great strap. Absolutely love it. Okay. Next thing on my list is, where is it? Where is it? There it is. The 28 to 72 lens. So I'm carrying, guess what? Only 2 lenses. Just that 135-2 lens and this 28 to 70. Now, that wasn't how it used to be before I had this 28 to 70. Well, I'll get into that, because that really was more when I was shooting DSLR. But this thing is amazing because beforehand I was shooting, or I was bringing a 50, a 35 or 24, so that's those two lenses, and sometimes an 85. Now I just bring this and the 135 and I've got it covered. Yes, I do love my 85 and I kind of miss it sometimes, but this is gonna do the job. And then I only have two lenses I'm switching back and forth, which is really helpful if I don't have an assistant, and switching lenses is kind of an interruption to what I'm doing. So that is a godsend. Now before then, again, I was shooting with a 50mm, so I would have brought the 50mm 1.2, either the EF or the RF, depending on what camera body I had. And sometimes, don't kill me on this, but sometimes I wouldn't bring anything wider. I take into consideration where I'm shooting. If I'm shooting in Central Park, I know I'm not going to shoot an ultra wide. So the widest that I would bring is a 35. I wouldn't even bother bringing my 24, just because I know where I shoot, I know how I shoot, and I know I have a ton of room to back up to get a wider shot without having to go with a super wide angle lens. So I keep that in mind. If I know I'm going somewhere that's maybe inside, like the New York Library, I don't necessarily have a ton of room to back up to capture the extraordinary architecture in there, so I'm definitely going to bring a 24mm lens. Well, quite frankly, now I don't have to worry about any of that because I just bring this 28-72 lens and it is covered, totally covered. Another reason why I love it, because now I don't have to think, do I need to bring my 35 or my 24? Oh, no, I'm good. I'm going to be able to go all the way down to 28. Okay. Let's talk about lighting, because I do bring lighting on sessions. Now, if I don't have an assistant, this is the reflector that I bring. It is the Lastolite Tri-Grip. This is an easy reflector if you're shooting by yourself and you want to throw some light in their eyes. There you go. It's easy one-handed, and you can even put your hand in here to get a better it's a good grip, to get a better grip on it, and that's holding more of the weight versus your fingertips. It's pretty large. It's exactly what I need. Oh, there we go, a little beat up. So this is what I'm using if I don't have an assistant, because I can hold this myself. These skins come off and flip around, so I've got a lot of options there. Okay, so if I do have an assistant, however, I am taking with me this Glow 5-in-1 reflector, and this one would be one that I have an assistant take because it's larger and they would definitely need to hold it. I can't really hold this myself. It's not as sturdy, but it's larger, so this is preferred for sure, and definitely having an assistant to hold it is even more preferred. Why don't I bring a light stand? You know, spoiler, I don't bring a light stand because most of the places that I shoot, either it's too windy and it'll fall over and then I'm carrying around a sandbag and just ridiculous, or number two, light stands aren't even allowed anywhere in New York City. Not happening, at least without a permit. All right, so that's that, one of those two reflectors. And then lighting. Now, remember, I take into consideration where I'm shooting. If I'm shooting somewhere that's inside, I will bring with me my Photo A1X. Obviously, I'll bring the battery, but there it is. I have the battery right in here. By the way, this is my awesome cabinet. I love my gear cabinet so much. I'll put a link to this cabinet down there so you can take a look at that. There we go. And if I'm bringing that, then I am also bringing my little pack of gels that go right onto my, actually gels and grids. And I kind of just pile them up just like that. All the gels, grids, see, they're all magnetized. They're pretty awesome. Gives me lots of options. And again, I don't bring a stand, but I will throw this on the ground or, you know, place it on something if I need to. Okay, now if I'm shooting outside and I know that I have to fight the sun, I am bringing with me, yes, along with the battery, my Photo B10. It's still small enough, it'll fit right in this bag, no problem. Especially since I'll be, you know, carrying this around after I take my camera out, no problem going in and out. All right, so that will go right there. Might as well just throw that in there so I can prove my point, right? There we go. So that's in there. Battery, of course. I don't take extra batteries because typically I'm only shooting for an hour. Don't need extra batteries. I will put an extra camera battery in here just in case, God forbid, something happened and I left the camera on as I was traveling. I do bring a transmitter. This is the Canon Air Remote by Photo, so that goes right in here. There, I'll just put this battery in here. I do normally take my B10 over my A1 because I am normally shooting outside. So I will put that there. And then, is that it? That's it. Yeah. All right. So I know we didn't talk about shooting an engagement session, but hey, that's where Skillshare comes in. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. You can explore new skills, deepen your passions like photography, and get lost in creativity. There are classes on photography as well as photo editing and much more. You can take one of the new classes on DIY product photography. It's taught by Rachel Gulata and Daniel Inskeep, and they are photographers actually, I believe right here in New York City at Mango Street, which is a huge photography company. Pretty interesting. Learning a lot of DIY tricks has certainly expanded the things I can do with product photography, and I'm sure it will for you too. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads. And they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. With Skillshare, and certainly for us photographers, you can find inspiration in the moment and learn how to express your creativity. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. All right, so that is it for packing my bag. And one of the most important things to remember here in the bag, one, is that you can zip it. Okay, maybe with the B10 it doesn't zip totally. There we go, but that's it. Oh, and then whatever reflector I've got just hooks on here because the straps come off, and I just sort of hook it through and we're good. And we've got one bag, and I can take this around and shoot whether I'm shooting by myself or shooting with an assistant. So that's what I've got in my bag. Now, let me just preface this because you might not have the exact same gear that I do, and you might not have the same shooting style that I do. So if I were shooting with a DSLR, for me, I would be taking my 1DX Mark III because that's what I have. But I think this is all going to be the same whether you're shooting a 90D or really anything, because I'm just talking about focal length. I always think in terms of wide, medium, tight, and I think about where I am shooting. So make sure that you have a nice long lens. Maybe for you that's a 70-200 and you love using that lens. For me, it's gosh darn heavy and I don't bring it on sessions where I'm carrying around just a bag like this. That's why I love that 135 f2, whether it's DSLR or mirrorless cameras. Another lens focal length that I love is the 50mm. I have a whole video on why I love the 50mm lens. In fact, I think it was one of my first videos here on YouTube. It's so versatile. I can do it for close-ups, I can use it for medium, and I can run as far away as I possibly can and use it for a nice wide or landscape shot. It is a great lens, that little nifty 50. And then of course, if you're shooting with mirrorless, Canon just came out with the RF 50mm 1.8, which is a killer lens. You don't have to go with the expensive lenses that I admit I absolutely have. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've got some cool gear after 20 years. Just think in terms of wide, medium, and tight. You want to be able to cover your ground and think about where you're shooting. You might not need anything wider than a 50mm lens if you're going and shooting in some kind of field in a farm, which I do very often, and don't bring anything except for a 50mm lens and the 135, and that's all I need. So take into consideration what you're shooting, what your shooting style is, and of course, lighting and what your needs are there. I'm wedding and portrait photographer Vanessa Joy. Thank you so much for joining me. What's in my bag? And I will see you next time. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, do the things. Bye.